Then you can just keep it on that stand. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. All right, give me a second here. Press the right buttons. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, let me put on my little chatter here. Okay. Okay. On the 6th day of April, 2021, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 10, The Opulence of the Absolute, text number 3, page 421. No? Okay. Okay. Right. Should we be able to sit over there? Okay, so we're page 421. Everyone's on the right page. And text number 3. Yo mam ajam anarimcha veti lokamaheshwaram asamudha samatyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate yo mamajamanarimcha veti lokamaheshwaram asamudha samatyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Hold it. I'm sorry, Mati. Can you sit over here? I'm sorry. There's a book for you there and everything. Okay. We're on page 421. Okay, 421. Yo mamajamanarimcha veti lokamaheshwaram asamudha samatyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Yo mamajamanarimcha veti lokamaheshwaram asamudha samatyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Prakash. Yo mam ajamanarimcha veti lokamaheshwaram asamudha samatyeshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Anyone else want to try? Okay. I'll read the word by words. Ya, anyone who, mam, me, ajam, unborn, anadim, without beginning, cha, also, veti, knows, loka, of the planets, maha ishwaram, the supreme master, asamudha, undiluted, saha, he, martyeshu, among those subject to death, sarvapapai, from all sinful reactions, pramuchyate, is delivered. Prakash, you know how to turn this down a little bit, please. Thank you. It's just you. Okay. Translation. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undiluted among men, is freed from all sins. Purport. As stated in the 7th chapter, 7.3, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid jhatati siddhaye. Those who are trying to elevate themselves to the platform of spiritual realization are not ordinary men. It's the one on the far left. You got that? Didn't seem to be a difference. Did you do it on the far left? Okay. Sorry, we have no people who live in the temple in the class today. Hare Krishna. That's better. All right. All right, going on. They are superior to millions and millions of ordinary men who have no knowledge of spiritual realization. But out of those actually trying to understand their spiritual situation, one who can come to the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the proprietor of everything, the unborn, is the most successful spiritually realized person. In that stage only, when one has fully understood Krishna's supreme position, can one be free completely from all sinful reactions. Here the Lord is described by the word Aja, meaning unborn. But he is distinct from the living entities who are described in the 2nd chapter as Aja. The Lord is different from the living entities who are taking birth and dying due to material attachment. The conditioned souls are changing their bodies, but his body is not changeable. Even when he comes to this material world, he comes as the same unborn. Therefore, in the 4th chapter, it is said that the Lord, by his internal potency, is not under the inferior material energy, but is always in the superior energy. In this verse, the words Veti Loka Maheshwaram indicate that one should know that Lord Krishna is the supreme proprietor of the planetary systems of the universe. He was existing before the creation, and he is different from his creation. All the demigods were created within this material world, but as far as Krishna is concerned, it is said that he is not created. Therefore, Krishna is different from the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. And because he is the creator of Brahma, Shiva, and all the other demigods, he is the supreme person of all planets. Shri Krishna is therefore different from everything that is created, and anyone who knows him as such immediately becomes liberated from all sinful reactions. One must be liberated from all sinful activities to be in the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Only by devotional service can he be known, and not by any other means, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. One should not try to understand Krishna as a human being. As stated previously, only a foolish person thinks him to be a human being. This is again expressed here in a different way. Any man, meaning any person, any man who is not foolish, who is intelligent enough to understand the constitutional position of the Godhead, is always free from all sinful reactions. If Krishna is known as the son of Devaki, then how can he be unborn? That is also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. When he appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva, he was not born as an ordinary child. He appeared in his original form, and then he transformed himself into an ordinary child. Anything done under the direction of Krishna is transcendental. It cannot be contaminated by material reactions, which may be auspicious or inauspicious. The conception that there are things auspicious and inauspicious in the material world is more or less a mental concoction, because there's nothing auspicious in the material world. Everything is inauspicious because the very material nature is inauspicious. We simply imagine it to be auspicious. Real auspiciousness depends on activities in Krishna consciousness in full devotion and service. Therefore, if we at all want our activities to be auspicious, then we should work under the directions of the Supreme Lord. Such directions are given in authoritative scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or from a bona fide spiritual master. Because the spiritual master is the representative of the Supreme Lord, his direction is directly the direction of the Supreme Lord. Yeah. The spiritual master, if you can just move the chair onto this side, because that's the ladies section. Thank you. And we have a book for the gentleman. We're on page 423. 423. Real auspiciousness depends on activities in Krishna consciousness in full devotion and service. Therefore, if we at all want our activities to be auspicious, then we should work under the directions of the Supreme Lord. Such directions are given in authoritative scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or from a bona fide spiritual master. I kind of read this, but I lost my place. Because the spiritual master is the representative of the Supreme Lord, his direction is directly the direction of the Supreme Lord. The spiritual master, saintly persons, and scriptures direct in the same way. There is no contradiction in these three sources. All actions done under such direction are free from the reactions of pious or impious activities of this material world. The transcendental attitude of the devotee in the performance of activities is actually that of renunciation, and this is called sannyas. As stated in the first verse of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, one who acts as a matter of duty because he has been ordered to do so by the Supreme Lord, and who does not seek shelter in the fruits of his activities, anashrita karma palam, is a true renouncer. Anyone acting under the direction of the Supreme Lord is actually a sannyasi and a yogi, and not the man or person who has simply taken the dress of the sannyasi or the pseudo-yogi. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chukshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of the Sri Parampara or disciplic succession. So, in this verse, Krishna is giving us a reason, a motive, to understand him as he is. Krishna is a name for what we call the Supreme Personality of Godhead, God. And Krishna means all attractive. It was I think in this chapter early on, in the beginning, it was described that there is a definition of Bhagavan. The word Bhagavan means he who possesses all opulences, all attractive opulences. And we have some experience in this world. If someone is very beautiful, if they're very wealthy, if they're very intelligent, if they're very famous, if they're very, very knowledgeable, and if they're self-contained and they are not, if they're not moved by every little thing, but they're very like stolid and determined, they're attractive. You know, these are attractive things, and we all have a certain amount of these. You know, so God is the one who has all of them infinitely. We can't really conceive with our present mind what it would mean to be infinitely beautiful. But we have some indication from what we call the Shastra or scripture of descriptions of Krishna and his beauty, and not only the physical beauty or the beauty of what he looks like, but also the grace of movement, the fragrance of his body, all the senses, you know, the beauty of his flute sound that he plays and his talking, everything that we can be attracted to in this plane. And we know why is there a market for music? Because some people can sing nicely, they have beautiful voice. There are sounds that we're ready to pay for, that we're ready to go to concerts for, right? So sound is certainly attractive, certainly physical beauty is attractive. All these things attract us in this material world. But we understand from the scripture, Srila Prabhupada gave these, in this, what we call purport or commentary, 3 sources of authority for how we can know that which is beyond the range of our material vision or understanding. And this is what's so difficult. It's hard. People say, how can you believe in something you can't see and you can't directly hear? You know, we can believe in, you know, the things that we can touch and see and hear, and, you know, it's crazy to believe in God. But why is it that there's always a spiritual impetus in every society? Because there are certain forces that are so great. Even in a primitive society, when there's a tremendous storm, when there's an earthquake, a volcano, you know, you have a sense of a power way beyond the limits of human life. And people understand, oh, there's a god or gods or somebody who's, you know, punishing us or doing these things in every society. So in India, goes back thousands and thousands of years, there are realized souls who have had direct perception of that which is beyond our ability to see. Just like on the mundane plane. I mean, I remember, I'm 70 now, I'm 73. And I remember when I first started going to school, you know, this and what was happening was the Russians were beating Americans in the space race at first. In 1958, they sent up the first Sputnik. It was a big deal that they had something that could orbit the Earth, you know. They called it the Sputnik, a little capsule, you know. And so America got, said, oh, we have to catch up, And so there was a push. I was only in 6th grade. Suddenly I had to learn German. Why do I have to learn German? Because so much of math and science textbooks were in German. And maybe I don't know. I didn't know it at first, but that's why. So I'm learning German 6th, 7th, 8th, and all through high school. I didn't really like the language, but I had to learn it. But suddenly there were more math courses and more effort like that. So what was going on? We understand that there's a frontier of human knowledge, and we want to be, as Americans, we want to be on the front of the frontier. We want to be at the front of the discovery ability. So there's always this limit to how much we know now, and that we're investigating more. Just in the medical field, so many things now. There's they were able to develop this vaccine in record time, a new kind of vaccine. Those of you who are looking at it, some of you say, I don't trust the vaccines, I don't trust the government. I don't blame you, But I thought, well, there's a better chance that it works, so I got a vaccine. But the point is, there are always more things to know. And those who really know, I think it was Einstein who said, I'm just standing on the shore of the knowledge. Even though he was known to be a tremendous scientist. So this is the nature of knowledge that's bound by our limited brains and our limited senses. And what do? We try to increase them or expand them. That's why we have telescopes. I remember they had the first electron microscope where they could actually look down and they could see what's going on in the atom. It was a big thing. It's the same eyes, but they're tremendously amplified. So when we come to the spirit, and this is like the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita, to understand the difference between spirit and matter. And spirit is not really mysterious. We deal with it all the time. We just don't know what to call it. We don't know. Spirit is nothing but consciousness, and everyone in this room is conscious, I assume. And but what is it? How does it come about? And there are many theories that it's produced by interactions of the brain, in the brain, that matter produces spirit, matter produces consciousness. But the first lesson in the Bhagavad Gita is that spirit is irreducible, that consciousness that pervades our body, really, is never destroyed. And that's who you really are. The body we have, and no one can deny it, is always changing. We can all remember when we're 10 years old, 12 years old, maybe 5, 6. I remember my first memory, I'm riding a tricycle when I'm 5 years old, whatever. Most of it is forgotten, but there are certain things. So certainly our body is constantly changing in this life, but we consider ourselves to be the same person. We have the same name, but the body is constantly changing. So what is it that doesn't change? We say my body, we say my foot, we say my mind even. What is it that is possessing that? That is the soul, called the Atma. And that Atma is never born and never dies. And immediately you say that, you say, oh, that implies transmigration of the soul. Other bodies, past and future. Now when you think about it, if that's true, and all of our scriptures and all of the sages in India have said, yes, this is basic understanding. Bhagavad Gita is the first lesson Krishna gives. So what does that mean? It means that if we're just striving for some benefit in this lifetime, whatever it may be, in terms of family life or comfort or this or that, or this is a very crippled view of who we really are. And so the first lesson is that no, you're never dying, and what you do in this life, a lot of it is determined from previous life, the law of karma. And because we actually have two bodies, two general bodies. We have the gross body, what we commonly call the body, but we also have the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, and the ego, the sense of self. And that subtle body does not die when the gross body dies. And that's what, you hear about these things of people going on astral traveling and near-death experiences. By now, everyone has probably heard of those. Somebody's having a heart attack, he's in the hospital, and and the doctors come in. I used to work in a hospital. Some of the all the machines, the paddles, and they're injecting epinephrine, whatever, to try to keep it. So if it works, and the heart's again, okay, it worked this time. Sometimes the person who finally wakes up says, I saw what happened. I was up there near the ceiling. Have you ever read about this? I know which doctors came in and you worked at me, and then I came back into the body. It was a shock, That subtle body and the soul, they can exist, and they do exist, separate from this gross body, which is nothing but a very complicated machine, But the point is that if we take that fact as a matter of faith, that we have a future beyond death, and that what we're doing now is determining our future. Now we have a big question. How can we act? What can we do in this lifetime, at this time, so that we'll have the best future? Now, that on a material plane, in the limits of one lifetime, we do that all the time. Why do parents want their kids to get educated? Kids are ready to play all day. Even Prabhupada said, I wanted to play. I didn't want to go to school, the first day in school. The parents, drag you to school and make sure you get to school, and finally you surrender. Because that subtle body, your mind, has to be trained so that you'll learn to read, and so when you grow up, you'll prosper in life. You'll have a good life. So that's the model. The teaching of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedic scriptures that we have is teaching us how we can act in such a way that we won't have to take birth again in this gross body. Because this body is really a source of suffering. When you get older, the older you get sometimes, you can tell. You get chronic things, they're not getting better. When you're a kid, you said you have a little boo-boo, even if you break your arm, it'll get better, it'll heal up, Johnny. Don't worry, just wear that cast for a few weeks, and there's hope. But after you get a certain age, all right, this is not getting better. I got whatever it may be, Even if it does get better, there'll come a point where it's all downhill. So, Krishna consciousness gives hope. The first hope is, you're not going to die. The jayate mriyate vakadachan nayam bhutva bhavitavan nabuya ajo nityak shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane shirere. This is a main verse in the second chapter. Prabhupada referred to it in his purport when he says in the earlier Bhagavad Gita, the living entity is described as aja. Aja means never born. The soul is never born. We should aspire to investigate and try to attain that state where we don't have to take birth again, where the soul does not have to be embodied again and go again through that business of old age and disease and then death, which are very painful and frightening. And so this process of bhakti yoga that we study here, which is the basis of this movement, and which Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita, and we probably referred to the Srimad Bhagavatam as kind of postgraduate study. It's a many-volume book teaching the same science. Is a step-by-step, systematic training of the subtle body, really, by activities that we do with our regular body also, that changes our consciousness so that we become conscious of God at every step and every moment in our lives. And that consciousness of Him is a wonderfully liberating event, because one of the byproducts, as you may have noticed, of material life is fear and anxiety. This pandemic is caused. There's also a pandemic of mental disease, as some of you may know. All the depression rates are up, and so much anxiety. What's going to happen? This thing is invisible, and it can get you any time. Now, okay, we got some hope with the vaccine, But really, there's no hope. In the ultimate sense, we're all eventually going to die. But we're not, it doesn't mean that there's no meaning to our life. The meaning is, when we learn this science, which is based on the process of sound, transcendental sound. That one verse I chanted, this is all of these Sanskrit you see here. Some you can't read. I can't even read it. I've never read it. The Devanagari, those funny letters. And then it was given in a phonetic way, so we can chant it, because the sound itself has potency. And especially in this age, the name of God. God is a person He has a name, he has a form, he has activities, he has qualities. When you think about it, there are 4 things that define a person. Name, form, qualities, and activities. Just like the police, if you look at someone, you know, first thing you want to, who did it? What's his name? Or her name, you know. Oh, okay, they probably have a file, they key it in, you know. Now we know where they live, you know, and what they, you know. But they also want to know, what do they look like? You know, colors. Like if you get your license, right? There's eye color on there too, and hair color. It doesn't help much for me, you know. But they have your age, they have your dress, right? So there's a form, there's a name, and there are qualities and activities. So Krishna is called Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila in about Krishna. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. So because God is absolute, means that he's all spirit. We're a combination of spirit and matter. But God is pure spirit. Therefore, one of those aspects can also reveal all the others. And so mystically, the name, we have this name, this is called the Maha Mantra, great mantra for deliverance of the mind from the control of matter and putting it on the spiritual plane. And it's made up of the names of God and his pleasure energy. So the name Krishna is there, as you see. And we used a little diacritics, but basically it's phonetic. So the first word, Hare, is actually a word that indicates the internal pleasure energy of God. You know, we can probably explain, we can know a lot about God from contemplating ourselves. Just like we, feel like we want to have a love relationship with others, you know, and it can take different forms. I remember when I was a kid, I had unforgettable experience. I was in a camp, and I was maybe 10, and my friend was 11. I think he was a little older than me, and I grew so attached to this boy, you know. There was nothing, erotic about it. It was just, I just felt tremendous friendship for this kid. And one day he didn't come to the camp. It was a day camp. And I was literally rolling on the ground, crying. And I remember the counselors looking at me and said, "This is very unusual. You haven't seen this kind of attachment before." But I had this very good friend. But the funny thing is with it, that, it lasted that few weeks in the summer. And then we both went to high school or something, or I was in 8th grade, he was in 9th grade. And it just dissipated. And this is what happens in the material plane. Even the most intense love, which our Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, said is the mother for the child. Most selfless. The mother doesn't love the child with some consideration. Well, does he love me back? He just wants that child, helpless child, to be happy and healthy and safe. And then the mother's, if the child smiles up at the mother, the whole day is made. Isn't it? It's the most pure type of love. But that changes. The child grows up, and the child gets to be 20, wants to move away, with like that. But it's there, undeniably. But so in God, where did it come from? Everything comes from God. In a few verses we're going to read, probably not this session, maybe tomorrow, or at least Monday. The verse that's like the first of the most 4 essential verses in the whole Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pravartate, which means, I've created everything has come from me. So therefore, if in our own lives we have all this variety of relationships and attachments, then why it has to be there in God somehow, but in perfection. So the perfection of the love relationship is with Radharani, who has another name called Hare. Hare is a vocative form of Hara, which means she steals away Krishna's mind because she's so beautiful and attractive, So Hare Krishna is the name meaning all attractive, Supreme Lord, and then Rama means who is always enjoying transcendental bliss, Ananda. Ananda Maya is a description of God, which means full of bliss. Now the wonderful thing about it is that we're part and parcel of Him. He explains that we're energy. We're like a sun ray to the sun. Each sun ray has a little bit of heat, a little bit of light. You put all of them together and we get sunlight, right? So we also have that quality of ananda, of bliss, which is our birthright. But in this artificial situation, covered by the material body, in our conditioned state, separate from God, we don't experience that. We try to experience it through matter, but we're constantly frustrated. We get some flickering pleasure, but then it ends, And if we try to get it too much, like everyone has had the experience, you eat something very delicious, prasadam maybe, and it's just so delicious. I got to have more, maybe one more. And before you know it, you're stuffed. And then, there's a bad reaction. If you keep doing it, you can get too fat, or, diabetes, whatever. You can't enjoy it constantly that way. But in the spiritual world, there's no restriction, because it's all spirit. There's no limit. So we belong there. That's the mission here. We belong with Krishna in our original loving relationship with him. And that he's infinite, so he can have an infinite number of servants and friends, and he also enjoys the rasa, or the relationship of being a child taken care of by his mother and father, who don't know he's God. They just think he's the most wonderful, loving child, and they have that relationship because they're covered by a spiritual energy, so that they can enjoy this intimate relationship. If you're thinking that this is God, all you can have is awe and reverence. There's no intimate little, child thing. Anyway, that's a little indication of the spiritual world. It's a whole science. Here in this 10th chapter, back to where we are, Krishna is describing who he is, what some of his opulences or glories are described in the chapter title. And here, this one verse, he's going to continue with this, especially after the 4 main verses, starting with text 8. But he's saying the benefit of knowing this, that I am unborn, that I have no beginning, that I am the Ishwar of all the worlds, the controller. Such a person, and such person alone, is asamudha. Samudha means completely bewildered and foolish. Asamudha just means the opposite, enlightened. Such a mortal, Marcheshu, that's us, who knows this, Savapapai pramuchite. Now this concept, free of all sinful reactions. When you act, there's a law. There's a whole government in running the universe. And God has his, cabinet, and he has his appointees, like Lord Brahma and Shiva, and they're controlling this world, and there's a god of the waters, god of the air, all of these things. There's intelligence behind everything. Nothing is going on automatically. When you look at the complexity of how this world works, or even just our own body, it's absolutely insane to think that there's not an intelligence that created all this and that is running it. So there is, and there are laws. Like if I'm a very cruel person and I'm sadistic and I love hurting others, and I'm in it just for myself. This is described in the 16th chapter. Krishna has a whole chapter, almost a whole chapter, describing the demonic. Then there's someone keeping track of all of the things you do in that mentality, and you have to pay for it. It's not, there's no such thing in our philosophy as eternal damnation. No. But there are hells. There are places where you can get a tremendous amount of punishment for things that you've done against the law that we commonly call sin. So we need to know what they are. And they produce reactions. If you're just going along, you may be going along nicely, then you hear some horrific car crash, took place on I-5 somewhere. So you should know, usually, a few cars and maybe some people died or got seriously injured. This is a bunch of karma suddenly coming due. It's not an accident that those particular cars, interacted. In other words, there's a controller, and we're all getting it. So it's called papa. Papa means not only sin, but the reaction to sin. So here Krishna is saying if someone understands Krishna and acts on that understanding, he's completely free from all sinful reactions. This is a great boon. Free from sinful reactions. That means that there's less of a burden that you have to work off, and you're closer to getting what you're looking for, which is liberation from birth and death, and return back to the spiritual world. Our spiritual master, this phrase became very famous. Go back home, back to Godhead. It's nice to unpack that. First of all, it implies that's where we came from. How can you go back home if you didn't come from there? And the fact that it's our home, a home, is a place you try to set it up where you're comfortable, where everything is, you feel secure, But that's just an illusion in this world. We're all renters, We're all renters of this body, which is our real home, and eventually we all get evicted. What to speak of your apartment, But when you go back home, back to Godhead with Krishna, you're never evicted. He says several places, when once going there, you never have to come back here. Every other place you come back, even the higher planets, and eventually you have to come back down, and you didn't make any progress. So we can cultivate the knowledge of Krishna in verses such as this. And Srila Prabhupada goes through many points here, discussing, Krishna's glories. Let's see. We went through the word Aja, those who know him to be the master of all of the Ishwaras. They're free from sin. He's different from everything that is created. This is explained in the text 8 here, like I quoted. And in another 4 verses, which are the essential verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, Ahamevāsamevāgre nadya yat sarasat param. It said, before there was anything manifest, and this whole creation is like periodical. Sometimes it's going on for millions and millions of years, and eventually it all breaks down as a huge annihilation, and we merge into the body of God for a long, long time, and we're in suspended animation, we're unconscious. And then eventually, but we still have our karma record. And so we eventually come out again and start again in our, this is how it's going, back and forth. So Krishna says, before there was anything, I existed. And after there's a manifestation, I only exist because it's all my energy. We're part of God's energy, and so are this matter, these things that we see here. And eventually, when everything's wound up, I continue to exist. That means, by definition, if you think about it, he must be the supreme creator. Is where everything's coming from. So that's also mentioned here. And when we, act on this knowledge, then we can realize it and move through this world with some hope. The next time I give Sunday class, which is a week from this coming Sunday, I think, the title is Finding Hope in a Hopeless World. Materially, there's no hope. This pandemic has given a little, taste of what it's like to be, in a situation that seems hopeless. But really, there's never any hope. It's just an illusion of hope. Whatever we build up materially is just taken away from us. But where is the hope? Spiritually. The hope is making some advancement toward that home. The Valhalla, paradise, whatever you want to call it. The place where we are always blissful. We're at the right hand of God or at the lotus feet. And we're reinstated in our natural position. We all belong there. So that's what this movement is all about. And it's scientific. And we're very fortunate to have Srila Prabhupada's explanations of these verses and Bhagavad Gita as it is. So it's 8 o'clock. Is there any discussion on these points? Yes, sir. Well, hold on. Yeah, we have a mic because there's a whole audience out there.
The spiritual body. I like that concept. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I haven't seen mine yet. You can take the mic. The body we have, as I mentioned, is not really our eternal body. Obviously, it's constantly changing. But just as God has a body, he has hands and legs and everything, and very beautiful and, attractive. So we have a place in that spiritual world. Otherwise, how could it be our home? It's our home. That means we have a specific relationship with Krishna. This is taught in other of our scriptures. And that spiritual body is now covered by the two coverings of the gross and subtle body. So the human body is kind of a reflection of it. We have a spiritual vision, but it's kind of restricted and reflected through this material vision, which is so limited. We have spiritual activities, but they're without knowledge. They we do sinful things and we suffer. But there's none of that in the spiritual world. Everything is completely wholesome, and there's no change. You don't get old. You don't die. There's a beautiful, and all of this is spoken in Sanskrit. I'll give you two verses. The Sanskrit language is the very word Sanskrit means perfectly composed, means scientifically composed. So this is from a song of Brahma called the Brahma-Samhita. And at the beginning of the universe, he had this revelation, and he composed this beautiful song. At the end of it, he has two verses describing just a little bit about what's going on in the spiritual world. So here's it goes. Shriya Kanta Kanta Padamapurusha Kalpataravo Dhrumam Bhumischindhamanagana Yamamatam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivangshi Priyasaki Chadanandam Jyoti Padamapitadasvajamapicha Sayatra Kshirabdi Sravadi Surabim Jascha Sumahan Namesharakyo Vavachinihiyatrapi Samayak Bhajeshweta Dvipam Tamahamiha Golokamitayam Vedantaste Santakshidivitachara Kitipaye. I might have got a few words wrong there, but I assume none of you noticed. But the meaning is, in that realm, in the spiritual realm, Shriya Kanta Paramapurusha, the supreme beloved is God, the Paramapurusha, the supreme person. And he has his consorts. We mentioned Hare or Hara, who are goddesses of fortune, eternally youthful, beautiful, kind, full of mercy. So he's there with that. And we're also there. Padamapurusha Kalpadaravo Dhruma. All the trees are desire trees. Meaning you can go to any tree and you can say, I'd like to have some ripe mangoes to offer to Krishna. And you'll get the mangoes from the tree. And you don't have to wait for the season. So desire trees. Dhruma Bhumi's Chintamani. There's something called a philosopher's stone, we'd probably call it a touchstone, where it can turn things to gold. It's a spiritual gem. So the land is all made of these spiritual gems, very beautiful and attractive. And the water is all nectar. There's no walking. It's just dancing. Everyone is dancing along. And there's no talking. Everyone is singing. All the talking. And everything is glowing with this Chidananda Jyoti, this effulgence, which is bliss. You can taste it. You know what I mean? It's like there's none of this inebriety. This one of the most aggravating parts of is where people. It seems each year it's worse. They get joy out of making so much noise with their cars or their motorcycles as to aggravating you. There's none of that. Everything is in tune, And then it goes on. There's cows, these wonderful Surabhi cows. You can get as much milk as you want anytime. So they're so blissful and happy that they're flooding the land with milk. And then here's a really important point here that he mentioned. Not a second, not a split second passes by. There's no past, there's no future. It's only the eternal present. Nobody's getting old, nobody's dying, nothing is disintegrating. It's simply the eternal present. And he says only a few very pure souls on walking this earth know about that. Goloka Vrindavan it's called. So that's just a taste of it. We have in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's more details on the land there and what's going on, Krishna's pastimes, and how we can lead our lives in such a way that we can approach that. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. And it's built around this wonderful process. Chanting, dancing, singing and dancing, and when you get a little tired, taking prasadam, which is spiritual food. And then when you get a little more energy, get up and dance and chant again. It's simply a process of recreation. But it's it's a serious process also. So this is as much I can give on it. There's a lot to them. But we'll get one book. If you get one book tonight, you can help me. Okay, it's 8:04. So the next one is a double verse. It means it has a lot of big purport, so we won't be able to deal with that one. But I'll give you a couple of poems before we go. So this is a poem about that mantra, about the chanting of the holy name, Krishna's name. It's called Hare Nama. It's called Kevalashtaka. Ashtaka is 8, means 8 verses describing the glories of the holy name. So I'll give you a little taste of the Sanskrit, but I'll give you maybe the English. It says, Maduram Madurebhyopi Mangalebhyopi Mangalam Pavanam Pavanebhyopi Hare Nama Kevalam. Of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of things that purify, purifies most powerfully. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Now, Shri Hari is another name for Krishna. Now, you have to know that Brahma, he has a planet, the top of the universe. You know, he's running everything. But he's still a demigod, he's not God. From Brahma's realm atop the sky down to the lowly grass, illusion reigns in Maya Devi's treacherous morass. The truth, the only truth, the name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. He's the mother, he's the father, he's the friend most true, and he's the real guru. She's the mother, he's the father, she's the mother, he's the friend most true, and let me get it right. He's the guru, he's the father, he's the friend most true, and she's the real mother who most kindly teaches you to always hear and chant the holy name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Now this is my favorite verse among these all. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Lord Shri Hari forever dwells wherever devotees, whose hearts are fixed on him and free of all impurities, uplift their voices high and sing his name in ecstasy. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Alas, what sorrow, what great pain, the worst calamity, for people to forget the holy name of Shri Hari. Although the name's a priceless gem, mere broken glass they see. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Just fill your ears, just fill them with the name of Shri Hari. Just chant the name with all sincerity. Just sing the holy name eternally. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. It makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the ground. Resplendently it reigns supreme, divinity and sound. It's filled with transcendental bliss and peerless purity. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Then I added a 9th verse. Inspired to glorify the holy name of Shri Hari, Sri Nilakanta wrote this hymn in Sanskrit poetry. I pray that those who hear this lowly version made by me will chant the holy name of Shri Hari in ecstasy. All right, Hare Krishna. Well, we have 2 more minutes. So I'll give you a couple of samples of other ones. So there's a vast literature, you can imagine. I put a very small fraction of it into this poetry because there's a lot, you won't be able to understand the Sanskrit unless I give you the English. So there's one describes the sweetness of Krishna. I remember how attractive he is. Maduram maduram vapadasya vibho maduram maduram vadanam maduram Madugan nimadusmitame tadaho Maduram 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 maduram. And you'll be able to see when we open the curtains the deity form of Krishna. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form, sweet is still his face so fair, but his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. Or a prayer of a great queen who was a great devotee of Krishna, and when he was about to leave and go back to his city and she wouldn't see him again, she offered these prayers, and this is near the end of her prayers. Another name for Krishna is Madhava, which means the husband of the goddess of fortune. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. One of my favorites of all time. And then finally, we have a bracing verse. Dehishti mangsurudide mimatam chajasva jaya sutadi chasadam mamatam vimuncha prashani sham chagadidham chanabhangatishtam vairagya ragadasiko bhavabhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for all you think you own. At every moment, see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Very nice class.
Hari Bol, Dhanavai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nice poem.
I suspect Jessica's out there also. Hare Krishna, Jessica.